So, good evening, dear friends. Welcome to the Tuesday evening Dharma session. Big welcome to the people at Wat Bodhanusong and any venerables who are there. Big respects to you and welcome. It's lovely to have you all with us this evening. Hello to everybody on Zoom. Hello to everybody in the room. I don't know why I'm saying hello to them because I see them all the time, but still, welcome. We can relax now. So we're going to begin this session as usual with some meditation time, maybe about 40 minutes of meditation, followed by a Dharma talk and some time at the end for discussion. And I'm going to give a little bit of guidance at the beginning of the meditation, but I will make time for us to also sit in silence together. So let's begin with our wonderful opportunity to sit together in our separate spaces, but here we are, a Sangha of practitioners. And this opportunity to stay put for 40 minutes, to bring the attention to the simplicity, to the presence, to the immanence of this moment. Closing the eyes, beginning to feel out what is here for us, what can be experienced. Attending to the body, such kindness to give time, to give space, to pay attention to this body, to this breath. So let's begin. Hopefully our mindfulness is being cultivated and it's with us, whatever the body's doing, whatever is happening for us. But this is our time to develop bhavana, to really give attention, full attention to mental development, to bhavana, to samadhi, to meditation. And we've been studying, contemplating, considering the Satipatthana Sutta together. This is what we're doing over the course of the winter. We've come to the point where the Buddha is inviting us to consider the body in this way. Consider the parts of the body. Consider what it's made up of. So I'd like to offer a little guidance and an invitation for those who would like to consider this teaching of the Buddha. And I'm simply going to speak out the parts of the body given to us in this contemplation, and see for yourselves how one can observe, feel, perhaps, note, perhaps, have a sense of place, as I mention these parts of the body. And I'd like to invite you all to consider them separately. And I'll give some guidance to help us to do that. But first we can sit quietly for another minute or two to allow people time to arrive, to settle, to bring awareness to the fore. coming in to the body sitting. And as we continue our meditation, let's consider this body from the top of the head right down to the soles of the feet as a sealed bag of skin. Filled with various organs, parts, aspects with their different functions. And first we can consider the earthy, the solid, the weighty, the formed. Consider the hair of the head. Perhaps bringing the attention to the scalp area and see how it feels. And contemplate this head hair. Perhaps the warmth it offers. Perhaps in some places the touch of the hair. Dead material, earth element, hair of the head. We can extend our attention over the whole body and consider the hair of the body. Long or short, thick or thin, in all the different places. Some hairy places, some smooth places, but always the hairs are there, except for the palms and the soles of the feet. Providing perhaps some warmth, sensation around the follicles of the hairs. Scattered all around the skin. Providing protection, easing friction in different places. hair of the body. Now let's consider the nails, toenails, fingernails, earth element, solid, protective, inert. Can we feel them? Can we feel around them? Nails. Let's bring the attention to the teeth. So solid, so hard. Feeling around them, the gums, inside of the mouth. Teeth. With each of these body parts, let's consider them individually, separately. So if we're separating them out and really examining, how is it? What are these teeth? And now we can consider the skin, the sealed bag, the envelope, the surface, all that we see when we look at another, and how sensitive and how alive it is for us. Feeling around the body, this protective layer, the top. And what is it really like if we take it off, look at it on its own? Skin. Let's bring our attention underneath the skin. Consider the flesh, the muscles, the meat, full of blood, red, holding the body together. And we can feel the muscles, can't we? Holding us up, giving the body shape. Sometimes tense, knotted, sometimes uncomfortable. Moving the attention around the body, allowing those muscles to relax, and visualizing how they are, how they look. What is it like just under the skin? Considering the fat, the membranes, the sinews there. All these tissues. Let's consider them part of this body. So clearly not something we normally identify with. And we don't really consider this to be me or mine. these various aspects. So helpful to consider them separately and see the impersonal nature here. The perhaps recognition that the attractiveness on the surface of the skin, of the musculature, is just an appearance, literally superficial. Good to take it apart and see things as they really are. Let's go deeper into the framework of the body, the bones, the skeleton. Solid mass of bones working together to give this body its shape, its form. Can we feel the bones? We can sense them, can't we? Just allow the attention to move through the body with this recognition of the skeleton. The last part to disintegrate after death. It seems least changeable of all the body parts, but actually going inside to the bone marrow, hive of activity, producing cells, blood cells. We can't feel it, but we can consider, contemplate bone marrow, anicca, constantly changing, anatta, not self, not me, not mine. None of these body parts lend themselves to a sense of me when taken separately. How helpful to divide and dissect and analyze the situation here. I'd like to invite you to bring the attention to the trunk of the body, the chest, the belly. Consider the kidneys at the back, lumbar region. Constant change, processing fluid, bringing it to the bladder at the front. We can't feel them perhaps, but let's consider these organs sitting a whole life doing this incredible work. Kidneys. Some of us may have eaten kidneys, seen kidneys on a plate, cooked. Same kidneys. Firm and sort of chewy, quite solid structure. And here they are in this body. Let's consider the heart, muscle, constantly beating, contracting, expanding, pumping. Can we feel it? Can we place it in the chest, just to the left, somewhere down there? Is there a heaviness there? Is there movement there? Let's consider the heart. Center. Seat of emotions, perhaps. Let's see. Considering the heart alone, removed from the body, how is that? And the lungs. We feel the lungs as they move with the breath. Also solid, but there's air element moving through, water element flowing through the lungs. What can we feel here? And we can consider the lungs on their own, separate, outside of the body. Sacs, bloody, full of spaces. Just a kind of mess, really. And here they are, inside this chest, doing this incredible work, keeping us alive, enabling us to practice. Let's move the attention down below the rib cage. On the left, the spleen. On the right, the liver. In the middle, the stomach. These organs sitting, constantly working in a way, processing so much anicca, so much change. Heat, flow, and earth element, weight and solidity here. Considering these organs separately and their place in this body. And moving further down, following the stomach, digestive system, the intestines, and the bowels. Long tube winding around the abdomen, constantly moving the feces, the food, which turns to feces through. Exchange of energy going on all the time. Can we feel it? Can we feel the guts? Maybe little movements or some gas, some air from time to time. Sometimes uncomfortable. We know they're there. And we feel them now. We feel what's going on inside the belly. And let's consider all those guts outside of the body. Just a long, long like a piece of string, hollow piece of string or hollow tube. Not something we identify with. Quite easy to appreciate, not self here, not me, not mine. Body parts, constantly changing, moving, keeping us alive. Considering inside the guts, the food we eat, if we've had a meal recently, just considering what's inside the stomach, churning around and being slowly digested with heat and acid, how it changes. The undigested food, as it moves down, getting covered in various enzymes and bile salts. This incredible chemical process going on, extracting and changing, and slowly it turns into feces. Considering the feces are not just things that appear when we go to defecate, but lodged in the body, appearing slowly. Slowly sort of compacting and solidifying in the bowel until they're ready to be eliminated. Body has all of this going on, all of this inside of us, inside of this form. Not often something we consider. Good to contemplate this aspect of body also. And from these solid parts, predominantly earth element, we can move to more subtle considerations, reflecting, remembering that there's also many kinds of liquid, predominantly water element, making up this body. Let's consider the bile as it comes out of the gallbladder, this green, acidy, strong tasting substance. We can't feel it, but we can consider this is part of the body. Sometimes when we vomit, we might taste bile. We might have had that experience, bitter. Considering bile. Considering phlegm. How we produce this kind of moisture from the lungs, from the throat. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the state of the body. Phlegm. Considering nasal mucus. We really pay attention to this if we have a cold or a flu. It can be excessive. But all the time, a little bit being produced here and there. We blow our noses from time to time. It's easy not to consider this as me or mine. This stuff that comes out, we just want to get rid of it, hide it away, Hope there's no little bits left behind, hanging out of the nostrils. Nasal mucus. Part of this body. Consider blood. We can consider pus, too closely related. Can we feel the flow of the blood? Can we feel the energy it brings to all the different parts of the body, giving us color, giving us warmth, pulsation, perhaps here and there? We're full of blood. We open up the body in any way, the knife or however, it pours forth, doesn't it? And so we're really full of this red substance. Let's consider this aspect of the body, the blood, the pus. Also liquid fat. When we see meat that's been cooked, the fat is kind of solidified. The rind of the bacon, and so on. But inside the body, a live body, it's liquid, coating, insulating, padding out these bodies. Some have more, some have less. For women, the breast tissue, great lumps of fat around the belly, around the thighs. Can we feel it? Can we feel its kind of volume of it, or the warmth of it? Considering fat as a separate body part, not attractive to us. Sometimes we can be attracted by shapes, body shapes, but we can consider in this contemplation what they're really made of. Flesh, fat, skin. Consider the tears, feeling the moisture around the eyes, lubricating. The saliva in the mouth, always moist, swallowing at regular intervals, pumping into the mouth from the salivary glands. Considering saliva. And where else is there moisture? In the joints, between the bones. Encapsulated liquid to allow the movement of the big joints, knees, where the thigh bones meet the hips, and so forth. Fluid of the joints, synovial fluid. We can't feel it, but we can notice the ease of movement it allows. That we can bend and sit like this. The flexibility we have. Fluid of the joints. And lastly, let's consider urine, that which we excrete, the fluid that comes out. from the genital area and the bladder that contains it. We might be able to feel the bladder. We certainly can sometimes, telling us it's time to go to the toilet. Let's consider urine. We're programmed to feel averse in a way or repelled by the excretory products like urine, like feces, like nasal mucus. But this is our chance to really just consider what actually are they? What are they really like? Are they disgusting? Are they any more disgusting than the skin or the hair? Is there anything really here that's disgusting or beautiful? This practice of body contemplation, the parts of the body, gives us a chance to see clearly, neither beautiful nor ugly. We can make peace with all the kind of programming that we have, the kind of responses we may have to different parts of the body in different contexts. And just see body as body, body parts as body parts. And so dispassion arises for us. Peaceful, calm, clear, cool, dispassion, letting go, putting it down, letting it be. I'd like to invite all of us to maybe consider going through these different body parts. We can sit quietly for some time now, 10 minutes or so, to continue this meditation practice. We can slowly, taking time, just emerge from the formal practice time, opening the eyes, and here we are. Noticing any sense of a transition that you may have, moving from a certain kind of mindfulness to another kind of mindfulness. And so good to allow the attention to actually remain in the body in some way, maybe the weight of the body or the eyes blinking or the temperature in the room, whatever you can feel, to see if we can maintain body awareness. It's very doable, isn't it? Even as we're listening, looking around, paying attention to other things. So I'd like to offer some words on Dharma and begin by paying homage to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. So we've had this opportunity to, if you chose to do the 31 parts of the body contemplation. And this is a wonderful practice to help us, particularly if we are, like most of us, liable to be attracted to certain aspects of this body or other bodies. And, you know, there's nothing in lay life wrong with having intimate relationships. Sexual activity is part of life. And there's nothing wrong with it, in a sense. But it's very helpful for us to consider attraction, the nature of attraction, what it is we're attracted to, and, you know, to kind of unpack it, and to also, if we're overcome with lust and passion as a habit, or frequently enough that this is something that is agitating for the mind, then we have this incredible tool to help us to cool down. There are times when it's appropriate to feel passionate towards another person, and there are times when it's not appropriate. And this is a wonderful way to help us to come out of desire and to calm and cool and come back to a place of equanimity. And of course, for monastics, this is our practice. We've given up on any kind of sexual activity. We're celibate in every sense of the word. And this is a way for us to chart our course, because it doesn't stop us from being sexual beings. You know, we don't immediately sort of switch off any kind of sexual energy, but we can work with it, and we can channel, and we can kind of sublimate these strong energies in the body. And this is a way that really helps us to clarify, to see things clearly, to really recognize, first of all, for this body that we're carrying around, what is its true nature? How is it really? It's not to lack appreciation at all for the body, because this is also our temple, isn't it? But it's to recognize that vanity and conceit and attachment to the body are actually just a whole lot of dukkha for us. And this contemplation is a way for us to begin to step away from that suffering, to extricate ourselves from delusion. So I went through the very standard, oft repeated 31 parts of the body contemplation that we find in the Pali Canon in various places, and most particularly in the Satipatthana Sutta. The Buddha gave us all these different ways to contemplate the body. And this is one, common and valuable practice. 31 parts obviously doesn't cover all the different body parts. It doesn't mention the genitals at all. It doesn't mention the brain, actually. There are lots of organs that are not mentioned, the ears, the eyes, and so forth. So this isn't a comprehensive list. We can add to it. We can make it your own. Figure, what is this body made of? And we don't have to stick necessarily to this list. But it's fine as it is, as it stands. It's good enough. There's probably a reason why there are 31 parts on the list from the Lord Buddha. There are also, in the Buddhist cosmology, aren't there 31 planes of existence? And there's probably some kind of mirroring there. We can consider the macrocosm and the microcosm in 31 different ways. Who knows? It could be that there's a relationship there. Over time, it became 32 parts of the body. The brain got added in at some point, quite useful, quite good to consider the brain. Another water element, fluid aspect of the body, held in and protected by the skull. This is another good object of contemplation for us. But whether you include that or not, it doesn't really matter. Let's consider for ourselves the body parts. And either one can learn this list, recite it, learn it off by heart and use it in our practice. Or one can consider how would you like to divide and dissect this body. You can get an anatomy book. There's marvelous pictorial representations of the body nowadays, aren't there, from corpses, photographed very brilliantly. There's the Bodyworks exhibition that many people have seen, Plasticination, created by the German scientist whose name I can't remember, who figured out how to preserve bodies in a remarkable, lifelike way through injecting some kind of plastic into the blood vessels at the time or shortly after the time of death. So we have these exhibitions, don't we, going around the world of body parts. And how valuable, how wonderful, because that really does something for people, I think. Many, many people are interested to go for all sorts of different reasons, perhaps, but they certainly would learn something very valuable, I think, don't you, from just looking at bodies and considering. We quite naturally relate them to this one, and a way of opening the doors to a more sincere, grounded, authentic way of relating, of perceiving the body. The Buddha spoke on many occasions about the 31 parts of the body. There's a really famous sutta that many of you will be familiar with, where he's talking to his son, Rahula. Rahula was a bit prone to conceit. He was probably very good looking. His father was very good looking, the Buddha, we're told. He had this wonderful complexion, this very healthy body. He was quite tall. He was perfectly proportioned, and he was most of his life. He was very fit. And his son probably looked like the Buddha. And anyway, he was quite conceited about his physical form, when he was a teenager. And how many of us remember as teenagers obsessing about our bodies one way or another? For some of us, wanting to make them more beautiful, make much of them. For others, agonizing over body parts that we felt were somehow inadequate or abnormal. Looking in the mirror a lot, getting into hairstyles and clothes and so forth. That's very normal, isn't it? Well, the Buddha's son was a teenager monk, novice monk, and perhaps he had that kind of going through puberty, that kind of perhaps quite natural attention to the body, because for kids, isn't it, as the body changes, it's really quite bizarre for us. It's quite strange to be in that body that's growing so fast and developing sexual characteristics and becoming something quite different from the simplicity of childhood. Quite poignant for us, really. Anyway, the Buddha gave Rahula this teaching because Rahula was getting a bit caught up in the seeming apparent beauty of his own body. And so there's a way that we can use this contemplation. People who are beautiful can be very adversely affected by that, can't they? And sometimes really love that and sometimes really hate it because of the attention that they receive. My best friend at school was really beautiful, is really beautiful still, but much older now, of course. But when we became, sort of 15 or 16, I can remember that everything changed for her because she would walk down the street and people would be looking at her. And she noticed, of course, and everyone was telling her that she had this remarkable physical beauty. And it was a burden and a trial for her, above all, I would say. So it's interesting, isn't it, how these standards of beauty or ugliness are very predominant in our world. Fashions and models and size zero and all of that. We can reflect on the ludicrous nature of these kind of obsessions with body and how surface deep they are, and to be able in adult life to move away from these things is quite easy, but for young people it can be really quite challenging. I'd like to read you another sutta that I have been considering on this topic, a sutta from the Sutta Nipata. It's in verse form, and it's a brilliant one. It's called Vijaya Sutta, victory. Vijaya means victory. And the victory in this sutta is the victory over desire for the body. So if you'd like to continue to meditate, observing the body, relaxing and listening with the whole body, I will read this sutta. Vijaya Sutta, victory teaching. Walking and standing, sitting and lying down, extending and contracting the limbs. These are the movements of the body, linked together by sinews and bones, plastered over by flesh and hide, and covered over by skin. This body is not seen as it is. It's full of guts and belly, liver and bladder, heart and lungs, kidney and spleen, spit and snot, sweat and fat, blood and synovial fluid, bile and grease. Then in 9 streams, the filth is always flowing. There's muck from the eyes, wax from the ears, mucus from the nostrils. The mouth sometimes vomits, bile and sometimes phlegm, and from the body, sweat and waste. Then there is the hollow head, all filled with brains. Governed by ignorance, the fool thinks it's lovely. And when it lies dead, bloated and livid, discarded in a charnel ground, the relatives forget it. It's devoured by dogs, by jackals, wolves, and worms. It's devoured by crows and vultures and any other creatures there. A wise person here, having heard the Buddha's words, fully understands it, for they see it as it is. As this is, so is that. As that is, so is this. They'd reject desire for the body inside and the body outside. That wise person here, rid of desire and lust, has found the deathless peace, nibbana, the imperishable state. This 2-legged body is dirty and stinking, full of different carcasses, and oozing all over the place. But still, it is cherished. And if, on account of such a body, someone prides themselves or looks down on others, what is that but failure to see? Anyway. So the important thing to say at this juncture is that this is not an encouragement to dislike the body, to turn away from the body, to feel disgusted, actually, or repelled by the body. It's more like an opportunity to balance things out for us. If one is already, appalled by this body, disgusted by this body, then these kind of contemplations are not really necessary. It's probably better for such a person to develop a heart of loving kindness, to develop compassion. That would be the right sort of balancing for such a person. But many of us, if not most of us, are less inclined to be disgusted by the body and more perhaps attracted here and there to bodies, kind of probably fairly neutral about our own, especially as we get older. Maybe there's aversion if there's pain or discomfort, or the body's not functioning as well as it used to. But on the whole, we're fairly neutral towards the body. Whether there's a lot of desire or there's a fairly neutral feeling, these contemplations are very helpful for us. It's a way of opening and allowing ourselves to just rest in what's real, just be present to what's actually this physical experience. I was quite fortunate as a young person. I did medicine at university, and I got to have these quite unusual experiences, I suppose, compared to most people, which is to dissect a body. And we had a very, obviously, generous donor somebody who'd passed away and who'd left his body to medical science. We had a room full of corpses, and my particular corpse that I was able to dissect was a gentleman who'd passed away, a very big and tall person, which was lucky for me because there was more to work with. It was easier than having a very small body or a compact body. But the extraordinary opportunity that it was to open it up and to really see what's there, day after day after day, you know, with the book and kind of trying to tease out the actual anatomy. But far more significantly, in a way, it was this hands-on experience of what it is to be around dead bodies and what the body is made of. And then later on, I mean, some of you may have had this opportunity, but as medical students, we had the chance to go to postmortems and see how, you know, the body is sort of forensically dissected in order to find out when there's a question about the cause of death. What happened? Why did this person die? What was the cause of death? And that was also very helpful for me, for us as medical students. We really grew up to see how it is, you know, to open up a body that's not very long ago passed away. The intense sensory experience that it is on every level, the smell, the sight, the sounds. They sort of saw off the skull, as you probably know, and bring down the skin. And so you see the skin as this very thin layer, unformed, and then the skeleton underneath, and open up the brain and so forth. And I'm really grateful for having had these opportunities because it's a reality check. And it didn't stop me falling in love with people and having sexual relationships. It didn't traumatize me. No, it was something like a very valuable understanding of the way things are. That probably was part of one of the things that led me to want to explore further the Dhamma. You know, you get to see the Dhamma of the body as a medic, and in all sorts of other fields too, to see bodies in different states. People in the army, people who witness trauma, accidents and so on. It's a very, very big shift from seeing a healthy body to seeing a body that's been in a car accident or that's been injured in some way. It's very powerful to see what is this body really. And of course, its nature is such that we can't delude ourselves for very long when we begin to investigate the Dhamma, that this is in any way me or mine. We can appreciate these bodies. We can appreciate their health when we have health. We can appreciate the opportunity to be embodied, can't we? Because to be embodied is to be able to observe and contemplate the four satipatthanas, to experience body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and Dhamma as mental contents as mental contents. This is our doorway. This is our gateway to Nibbana. And so this human life, as we're told by the Buddha, such a precious opportunity. We can have great gratitude for these bodies and gratitude to our parents for this life. And so, you know, there are many ways to contemplate the body. And I've just wanted to introduce tonight this way of dividing, dissecting, and observing, contemplating the body part by part. Use this practice. See how it informs the heart, informs the mind. See if it works for you. To have this practice work for you is to notice a certain degree of dispassion arising, a certain degree of peace, of letting go, of cooling down. This is a benefit. A way of finding this practice doesn't work for you would be if it makes you feel averse towards this body, upset. If it gives you a sense of despair or depression, then this isn't a practice for you. You don't need it. You need to do something else. Practice metta, practice observing the breath, and so forth. Of course, we all know the story probably at the time of the Buddha. There was a whole group of monks, of bhikkhus, who were given this instruction by the Buddha to practice contemplating the 31 body parts. And they got a bit carried away and became very averse to the body and ended up actually doing a kind of mass suicide. And the Buddha came back and asked, where have all the monks gone? And he was told, well, they were so appalled and disgusted by these bodies that they decided the best thing they could do was to dispatch them, dispose of them, put an end to it all. And the Buddha said, oh, foolish men, how could they be so misguided? He then gave the monks who were left, who'd witnessed all of this, he told them to stop contemplating the 31 body parts and to observe anapanasati instead. Contemplate the breath. We have to be wise about our practice, don't we? We have to be skillful. At the end of the day, we're all our own teachers, aren't we? And we have to discern what's good for me, what works for me. If I'm a person who's full of sensual desire, and I get carried away and kind of agitated with lust so much of the time, this is a practice for me. If I'm somebody who is full of aversion, I hate my life, and so forth, then this is not a practice for me, and we can decide for ourselves. But it's a really good contemplation to consider, to give some time for, and to see how it works for you. So I think I'll conclude on this note. A1. Sadhu, 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 sadhu. So thank you. I'm going to